I'm 90 years old, and I've spent most of my life alone. Not because I wanted to be, not because I preferred it that way, but because I built walls so high nobody could climb over them. And by the time I realized what I'd done, everyone had stopped trying. I didn't start out this way. When I was young, I had friends, not many but a few, people from school, neighbors, the kind of friendships you fall into when you're forced to be around the same people every day. But even then, I kept my distance. I was the one who listened more than I talked, who smiled and nodded but never really opened up, who went home and felt relieved to be alone again. I told myself I was just private, that I didn't need to share everything the way other people did, that keeping things to myself was a strength, not a weakness. But it wasn't strength, it was fear. I just didn't know it yet. I grew up in the 1930s and 40s. My father was a hard man, not cruel exactly, just unavailable. He worked long hours at the factory, came home tired, ate dinner in silence, went to bed. He didn't talk much, didn't show affection, didn't ask how we were doing, and my mother followed his lead. She was busy, always cleaning or cooking or mending something. She took care of us in practical ways, made sure we were fed and clothed, but she didn't have time for feelings, for conversations that didn't serve a purpose. So I learned early that emotions were inconvenient, that needing people was a burden, that it was better to handle things on your own and not bother anyone else. I carried that into adulthood without even realizing it. I never married, came close once. There was a woman I dated when I was 32. Her name was Ruth. She was kind, patient. She said she loved me, and I think I loved her too, as much as I knew how to, but I could never say it, could never show it in the way she needed. She'd try to talk to me about us, about the future, about what I was feeling, and I'd shut down, change the subject, tell her everything was fine. After 2 years, she left, said she felt like she was in the relationship alone, that I was there but not really there, that she couldn't spend her life trying to get through a wall I refused to take down. I didn't fight for her, didn't ask her to stay, just let her go and told myself it was for the best, that I wasn't cut out for relationships anyway. But the truth is, I was scared of being vulnerable, scared of needing someone and having them leave, scared of letting someone see me, really see me, and deciding I wasn't worth staying for. So I stayed alone, and I told myself I preferred it that way. I worked as an accountant for 40 years. Good at it, reliable, the kind of employee you could count on. I showed up on time every day, did my work, didn't cause problems, didn't get too close to anyone. There were people I worked with for decades. We'd say good morning, talk about the weather, share a break room sometimes. But I never went to their birthday parties, never joined them for drinks after work, never accepted invitations to their homes. They stopped asking eventually, and I felt relieved, like I'd successfully avoided the discomfort of having to make excuses. But what I'd actually done was cut myself off from connection, from friendship, from the possibility of mattering to anyone outside of a professional capacity. I had a routine, work, home, dinner, TV, bed. Weekends I'd run errands, read, take walks. I didn't mind the silence, didn't mind eating alone, didn't mind not having plans, or at least I told myself I didn't mind. But there were moments, quiet moments, where I'd see families at the park, or couples having dinner, or groups of friends laughing together, and I'd feel something I couldn't quite name, something heavy, something that made me walk a little faster and look away. I had a neighbor once, Mrs. Patterson. She lived next door for 15 years. Sweet woman, widow. She'd try to talk to me sometimes when we were both outside, ask about my day, invite me over for coffee. I was always polite, but I always said no, always kept it brief, always found a reason to go back inside. She died when I was 67, heart attack. I didn't even know she was sick. The ambulance came in the middle of the night. I saw them take her away, and that was it. At her funeral, people talked about how kind she was, how generous, how she was always there for her friends and family, how she'd lived a full life surrounded by people who loved her. And I realized I'd lived next door to her for 15 years and I barely knew her, because I'd never let her in, never accepted her kindness, never given her a chance to be more than a polite stranger. I retired at 70, thought maybe I'd fill my time with hobbies, join some groups, be more social. But I didn't know how to walk into a room full of people and just be part of it. So I stayed home, alone, like I'd always been. My health started declining a few years ago. Nothing dramatic, just the slow deterioration that comes with age, harder to move, harder to remember things, harder to take care of myself. I ended up in assisted living last year. This place where there are other people around all the time, meals in a common dining room, activities and events, people trying to be friendly, and I'm still doing it, still keeping my distance, still eating by myself when I can, still avoiding conversations, still going back to my room and closing the door, because I don't know how to be any other way. I've spent 90 years building these walls, and I don't know how to tear them down now. Don't even know if I can. There's a woman here, Mrs. Chen. She sits at my table sometimes during meals, tries to make conversation, asks me questions, tells me about her family, and I give short answers, polite but distant, and I can see the exact moment when she realizes I'm not interested, when she stops trying, and I want to tell her it's not her, that it's me, that I'm not capable of this, that I've never been capable of this. But I don't say anything. I just let her stop trying, like I've let everyone stop trying my whole life. I look back now, and I see all the moments I could have chosen differently, could have said yes instead of no, could have opened up instead of shutting down, could have let people in instead of pushing them away. Ruth, Mrs. Patterson, the co-workers who stopped inviting me, the neighbors who gave up trying to be neighborly, all the people who reached out and got nothing back. And I realize now what I was so afraid of. I was afraid of being hurt, of being abandoned, of needing someone and having them leave. But by protecting myself from that possibility, I guaranteed the very thing I feared. I ended up alone anyway, not because people left, but because I never let them stay. I spent my whole life thinking I was fine on my own, that I didn't need anyone, that independence was the same as strength. But it's not. Independence without connection isn't strength. It's just loneliness dressed up as a choice. And now I'm 90 years old, living in a building full of people, surrounded by opportunities for friendship, for conversation, for human connection, and I still can't do it, because I've spent so long being this way, I don't remember how to be any other way. I don't know if you're like I was, keeping people at arm's length because it feels safer, telling yourself you're fine alone because admitting you're not would be too painful. Maybe you are. Maybe you've built walls too. Maybe you think they're protecting you. But I'll tell you what I wish someone had told me when I was 30, when I was young enough to change, when I still had time. Those walls don't protect you. They just isolate you. And one day you'll wake up and realize you've spent your whole life alone. Not because nobody wanted to know you, but because you never let them try. You think you're being strong, independent, self-sufficient. But what you're really doing is cheating yourself out of the one thing that makes life worth living. Connection, being known, being part of something bigger than yourself. I don't have much time left, maybe a few months, maybe a year or two if I'm lucky. But I'll spend whatever time I have left exactly the way I've spent the last 90 years. Alone, not because I have to be, but because I don't know how to be anything else. And that's the saddest part, not that I'm alone, but that I did this to myself, that I had countless chances to choose differently, and I didn't take any of them. I'm 90 years old, and I finally understand why I was always alone. I just wish I'd understood it at 30, when it still mattered, when there was still time to do something about it. But there's no time left now, just me, in this room, with these walls I built, and nobody left to tear them down.